Today we're checking out this SR Performance adjustable front strut for the 2015 and newer Mustangs without MagneRide. If you're looking to reclaim solid handling, firm up your front end, and get more control without breaking the bank, then this strut is definitely worth checking out. This front strut from SR Performance offers user adjustable damping with just the turn of an Allen key. Turning it one way is gonna make it more stiff, and turning it the other way is gonna soften it up for daily driving comfort. It's built with a gas pressurized monotube design and a larger piston than stock, so it handles bumps, cornerings, and transitions more reliably under load. The outer shell is made of steel with a durable black powder coat finish for long-term corrosion resistance and a rugged look. Since it's a direct bolt-on replacement, it keeps factory mounting and geometry intact while allowing the driver to fine-tune how that front end feels. This is constructed with a monotube gas design like I mentioned and rugged steel housing with a factory-like assembly. This strut gives a strong balance between durability and performance. The adjustable insert is built for repeated tuning over time, so you can always tweak it between race days and daily driving days if that's your thing. The threads and seals are engineered to withstand frequent use, and the powder finish helps protect against weather, road debris, and corrosion over time. As far as the pricing goes on this, it's coming in right in that $200 price range. Given the adjustability, the improved performance, and long-term value, it offers a solid bang for your buck for Mustang owners looking to shore up that front end. When it comes to the install on this, it is going to be rated a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, but you can have this done in just 2 hours or less of your time. Now let's head on out to the shop, and we're going to give you a detailed walkthrough of exactly how this install process goes.
Tools required for this install include a couple different size impact guns, a pass-through ratchet, hand ratchet, clip remover tool, 17mm wrench, caliper hook, vice grips, a hammer, a long 4mm Allen socket, a long 10mm socket, the included Allen wrench, 15, 18, and 24mm sockets, 13, 16ths, and 7/8 pass-through sockets, 15mm swivel socket, and a spring compressor. Today we're installing a front strut on our Mustang, so let's get started.
All right, so first thing we need to do is get our caliper off of our knuckle. So we have a bolt here, a bolt here. So we're gonna grab our impact and 15mm socket, take those two out. Pop those bolts out. We're gonna grab our caliper hanging tool and just hang that up and set that aside. All right, we're just gonna take our rotor off now since it's basically just falling off, a little bit of studs, and set that aside. All right, so we're gonna grab our impact and 18mm socket and take our nut off our sway bar link here. Now we have a 17mm wrench that we're gonna hold the backside with, just because it will spin. Once we get that nut off, we can just pull that back through our strut, nut that lean off to the side. So we have our ABS wire that's attached to our strut here. So we're gonna grab our clip removal tool and pop it off here and here. Pull that aside. Now we can take our two main bolts out of our knuckle. All right, now we're gonna switch to our impact and 24mm socket. We're gonna take our two nuts off of our main bolts here on the knuckle. Now we're gonna leave those threaded on, just thread them off a little bit, just so we're not gonna mushroom the end of the bolt here. Grab your hammer and just tap those bolts through. They are splined in so they don't just spin out. Once you have them both through, take our nuts off. You can lift up on the knuckle slightly. That might help you get it out a little bit easier. Or just take your hammer, just tap them gently through. All right, just gonna lift, push up on our knuckle here a little bit. That'll loosen them up. All right, and then we'll just pull the bottom one out. Just let that knuckle rest down. And we just have our 3 bolts up top, then we can remove our strut. All right, so we have our 3 bolts up top here. They are all 15 millimeter. So we're gonna take our back 2 completely off first. All right, then as we take our 3rd one off, our strut will fall when you take it off completely. So you're gonna wanna hold the strut from underneath and take that off at the same time. All right, this pulls out from the bottom. Once you have this side out, you can go do the same thing for the other side.
So now that we have our factory strut removed, we're gonna come over to the spring compressor so that we can remove our strut. I've got the bottoms hooked onto the spring and the top on the top hat. You wanna make sure this is nice and straight, and also that you're gripping onto the spring and the top hat pretty well. And then you can start cranking down on it to release that spring tension. So now we're just gonna crank down on this until our strut is nice and loose. Now I should also mention I have a pair of vice grips here on the spring right in front of this piece so that this doesn't rotate. Now our strut's starting to get loose, so we're just gonna keep going a little more. And now you can see that's moving. So now I'm gonna take a pass-through socket and ratchet. I've got a 13/16 socket that I'm gonna get on that nut. And then I've got a long, thin 10 millimeter socket that I'm gonna use to hold this stud to prevent it from spinning. I've got my ratchet right up against the metal so that it holds. And then I'm just gonna start loosening that nut. Be careful, make sure that your top hat isn't rotating while you do this. Once we start getting closer to the end, I'm gonna put a foot underneath the strut just to prevent it from falling. And then we can slide that out of there. Now we're just gonna pop off our dust boot, slide our bump stop off, and then we're gonna pop out this rubber piece, and we're gonna transfer these all over to our new strut. Now before we go over to the spring compressor and swap over our spring and our top hat, these are adjustable, so I'm gonna show you how to adjust the dampening on the table before we go over there. Now we have this included Allen wrench. There's a 4 millimeter Allen cutout here to hold the shaft to prevent it spinning when you put the nut on. But there's a smaller Allen cutout further down. If you slide this in, these are 32-way adjustable dampening. So I'm just gonna put it around 16 right in the middle. So I'm gonna take my Allen wrench, turn it all the way to the left, and then we'll just turn it 15 clicks to get to the 16th setting. So now you'll feel a very distinct click at each turn. So now we're at that 16th setting, that's right in the middle. If you want it to be a little bit softer, you can go to the left. And if you want it to be a little stiffer, you can go to the right and make your adjustments there. So now with that done, we'll head over to the spring compressor and swap over our spring. Now we're just gonna throw all that stuff back onto our new strut. We've got these 2 little pegs that are gonna go in the 2 holes. Just line those up, press them down, and grab your bump stop. Slide that on. Get your dust boot on, and then we're just gonna slide that into place. Get the end of your spring lined up with that piece. And then we have a new nut included in the kit, so you can thread that onto the stud. Now at this point, I'm gonna relieve a little bit of the spring tension so that we can get this sitting how it needs to. And then I'm gonna take a 7/8 socket and start tightening that down. Once again, I'm just watching my spring, making sure it's sitting where it needs to as I tighten this. So now that shaft was just spinning when I was trying to tighten this down. So I've got a long 4 millimeter Allen socket that I'm gonna use to hold this stud. And once again, I'm just gonna make sure that's all nice and lined up, and I can start tightening it down. Now, once you have that nut fully tightened down, we can start relieving tension on our spring. Once again, just make sure that it's lined up in that rubber piece. We're looking good. I'm just going nice and slow with this. Then you can pop your jaws out of the way, remove your vice grips, and remove your strut. So now I'm going to take my strut, raise it up into the top of our strut tower, and thread my nuts on, and then we'll come back and tighten those down last. I'm just reusing my factory nuts, just threading those on hand tight. So now we're going to reconnect our knuckle to our strut and reinstall our 2 bolts. So you might need to rotate your strut a little bit to get it to line up here. And I'm just going to get my first hole to line up first at the bottom. Pass my bolt through. And then we just need to lift up on the knuckle. Get our second one to line up. Thread your nuts onto the other side. And then grab your 24mm socket and tighten down the nuts. Next, we can reinstall our end link. Now we've got this hex cut out over here that we're going to grab with a 17mm wrench to tighten down. Slide that in, thread your nut back on. And then I'm going to get my 17mm wrench on the back side there and use my 18mm socket to tighten down the nut. Now I'm going to reinstall my rotor. And I'm just going to take a lug nut to thread on to the bottom stud to hold this against the hub, and that's going to make it a lot easier to get our caliper back on. So now I'm going to grab my caliper off the hook, slide that over the rotor, and then I'm going to get my bolts, line those up and thread them in. And then I'm going to grab my 15mm swivel socket and tighten those bolts down. So now we're going to grab our ABS wire, reinstall that clip at the top, as well as the clip in the side. And then we just need to go back up top and tighten down our upper strut nuts. So now we're just going to take a 15mm socket and tighten down our 3 upper strut nuts. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the SR Performance adjustable front strut for your 2015 and newer Mustang without Magna Ride. Thank you for watching, and for all things Mustang, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.